Hello, everyone. We hope you are in a good shape and ready, energized for this fantastic 4-day fair at VivaTech. We're very happy to welcome you here at Sanofi's booth. We have plenty of things to make you discover. And our next talk will be actually on the digital first drug development, how basically accelerating and reinventing drug development. So let's imagine all together that we could test a treatment before even a patient ever receives it. Imagine we could predict how the therapy may work before the patient even gets it. So to talk about that, please give a warm welcome to our guest speakers, Thomas Klabunde, Global Head of Disease and Modeling, and Firas Abdessalem, Digital Lead. Great applause.
Thank you.
We're very excited to have you here for a very interesting talk. Let's welcome and let's consider, obviously you know everyone, or you'll discover that Sanofi is considering itself as an R&D-driven, AI-powered biopharma company committed, obviously, to improve people's lives. So there are clearly very bold ambitions on digital AI and AI, on transforming R&D. So Firas, tell us more about that.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So I think it's in the continuity of the previous talks to just think about the number of years a patient will wait for a breakthrough. And in that sense, the mission is at the same time simple, but also massive. It's to have the time from discovery to life-changing therapy for the patients. And in order to achieve that at Sanofi, we're not just using AI. We're trying to rewire R&D to have AI at every step. And the biggest challenge to make this happen is the at-scale part, so to put everything at scale. Because it's one thing to run a pilot, it's a whole different thing to put AI at every step of drug development in order to bring more medicine to the patients more quickly. And in order to do that, you have to make it scalable, repeatable, so it's not a one-time experiment, but it's a real change in the way we work.
Let's maybe come back to the basics. And when we imagine drug development, Thomas, most of the people can imagine that we are finding a molecule in a lab, and that's it. What do you think?
Yeah, so actually developing new medicine is a decade-long marathon. So it's not 42 kilometers, but it's really taking roughly 10 years. And it's a stepwise race that, yes, starts in the lab by looking for that needle in the haystack molecule. And then actually from there we move into preclinical testing, which is having models, laboratory models, animal models, to look for first signals of safety and efficacy. And then if science holds, the most critical phase starts, which is clinical development, which means years of clinical trials in humans to prove that the medicine is working in humans, and also to generate the evidence drug regulators require.
So basically it's very complex, it takes years, as you said, and there's a lot of regulation. So how do you get there?
Yeah, so clinical development follows a series of high-stake gates. So we typically start by testing a new medicine for safety in a handful of volunteers. That's phase 1 trials. Then we move into larger groups to identify the optimal dose. And then that's phase 2 trials. And then into large-scale phase 3 trials, where we have to prove that the new drug is working in real patients.
I see, but why is that so long? And what does that mean concretely? What's the challenge?
Yeah.
Because it's hard to understand why it takes so long.
Yeah, it's a long journey. It's expensive, and there's a lot of risk and challenges. And I would say there are 3. So the first challenge is that human biology is complex, and we heavily rely on patient enrollment to prove that a medicine is working in humans. And some of these patients are vulnerable. They are hard to reach. And the second is that, and that's the core one, that at each stage gate, we have to take the right investment decision. So after phase 2, how does the data look? Is it supporting to go into phase 3? And last but not least, I think we have to have the right rigor in designing the clinical trials so that we avoid investing maybe a decade on a new drug that is in the end not working, or that we cannot show a drug being efficacious because of flaws in the trial design, be it including the wrong patients or having the wrong dose.
So I understand there's a massive uncertainty and it takes a long time, as we said. How, tell us, Firas, why is Sanofi investing so much money into artificial intelligence? Everybody is investing, obviously, but into clinical trials specifically.
Yeah, I mean, the reason is quite simple. It's because we are at a pretty interesting moment in time where we have two big breakthroughs that are happening simultaneously, two inflection points. If you think about it, until recently, computers were just big calculators. They were able to crunch numbers, process data, but they were not able to reason like a human being. And for the first time now, we're starting to have more advanced AI models, agents that are able to act autonomously, and not only to process the data, but also to connect the dots, generate insights, and have a scientific-like methodology. So that's on the AI side. On the other hand, we also are starting to have increasingly complex and incredibly complete digital human biology models that allow us to predict how a treatment will work in a patient's body ahead of time. So it's a very interesting moment to have a dual breakthrough.
And I suppose that it's a game changer, isn't it?
I mean, absolutely. I think that the game changer is the fusion of these two breakthroughs. Is when you combine the AI agents with incredibly complex human biology models, you're able to not only observe the outcomes, but also predict them. And that way, you can go beyond just accelerating the drug development. You're able to reinvent it, and you can really go to the next frontier.
Okay, I think everybody is curious to know concretely how it works. So let's take an example that you have.
So a good example, I think, is that the teams are building, for example, digital patient twins. So these entities that are a digital representation of a human biology, increasingly complete, increasingly complex, but also AI systems. And these two components help us bridge the gap between the scientific understanding and what actually happens in real life with the patients. So we use these AI systems to create predictive models that help us run simulations and make the best decisions faster early on in the portfolio, and then accelerate the whole process. And after that, we're able to leverage AI at every step of the data journey, so accelerate the data capture from the initial patient's insight collection to the regulatory submission. And that way, we can focus on the actual science and use AI to accelerate everything in between.
And let's bring it to life. Imagine I'm a patient, basically. What does it change for me, and how how AI could help connect the clinical trials to me as a patient?
That's a very good question. It's when you go to the patient, I think it's interesting to know that less than 10 patients that are eligible for clinical trial actually enroll in one. And the reason for that is simply because there's a lack of awareness or a lack of trust. So what we're trying to accomplish is to use AI as a horizontal enabler that will help us make a shift in our understanding of the patients. So it helps us connect clinical trial data to real-life information to help us know who our patients are, what treatments do they take, how does their disease progress from day to day. And that way we have more specific profiles for the patients who understand their unmet needs. And we're also able to understand their quality of life, their socioeconomic status, and so on. And once we have this understanding, the AI then helps us to reach out to these patients in a better way, in more large scale, at the right time, and to also generate content that speaks to them, that's more adapted to them, and that helps them build the awareness and create that trust.
So I understand that data is a key component for all this. How are you planning to use AI to accelerate this?
I mean, data is pivotal because in order to, I think as Thomas was explaining, to reach the submission and to make the medication available, we need evidence, and for evidence, we need data. So in that regard, AI is super powerful when it comes to data. It's another area where it can shine. So the idea here is that we are able to move the data journey from more of a manual marathon where we collect data manually to more a set of automated sprints. And in that way, the AI can help us move from more of a checks after the fact of the data to more of a continuous review of the clinical data flow that will help automatically catch errors or identify patterns or even prepare documentation for regulatory submission ahead of time. So in that way, I think it's where it's super powerful. It will help us move what was previously, historically, a very slow process to more of a proactive engine for decision making.
So I understand the enrollment is going, it's much easier, it's going faster basically using this agent AI. But I'm sure also we want to know a little bit more about the computer models you're building, obviously, Thomas. So I believe you call them digital twins. We mentioned them earlier.
Yeah, so let's imagine we would be able to test a new medicine on a patient without that patient ever having to step into the clinic. And that's the power of digital patient twins. So these are virtual replicas of real persons, actually built by advanced computer modeling and trained with medical data. Let's watch a short video on that.
In medicine, breakthroughs often feel like they take forever, but the future might be closer than we think. Imagine being able to turn years of data into actionable insights to accelerate life-saving treatments. This is the promise of digital patient twins, a groundbreaking innovation that could completely revolutionize clinical trials. Digital patient twins are virtual representations of patients based on advanced computational models that describe human physiology and disease along with a drug's mechanism of action. Digital patient twins allow us to boost probability of success and enhance trial designs by identifying high-potential drug candidates, optimizing dosing strategies, and reducing patient sample size. This is especially vital for rare diseases, where patient populations are inherently small and geographically dispersed, as well as pediatric studies with specific ethical considerations and the challenge of recruiting young patients. Digital patient twins offer a non-invasive method to generate synthetic control data, explore treatment responses across different age groups and developmental stages, reducing the reliance on real-world participants and speeding up transition between trial phases. For example, the disease modeling team's work on lunsekimig in asthma accelerated the program by 1 year, skipping Phase 2A to move directly from Phase 1B to Phase 2B. We have developed a proof of concept of digital patient twin on 2 key indications, asthma and Pompe disease. This first iteration enables clinicians to predict disease progression and treatment responses at population and individual patient level. Our goal is to build an integrated digital twin platform that expands to all Sanofi key assets and indications to bring treatments to patients faster and pioneer the journey toward personalized medicine. With digital patient twins, we have a great opportunity to create a fully integrated in silico first R&D organization. The future is already here. Let's shape it together.
Very interesting, but let's recap maybe what we just saw. What is a digital twin basically? How would you explain it for those who don't know, let's say in a family picnic?
Yeah, that's a good picture. So a digital patient twin is like a virtual copy of a real person, and we use their medical data to actually build a computer model that behaves like them. And this allows us to actually explore a new medicine in these virtual patients first before we try out anything on a real persona.
So this means basically that you're running it without a person, as you said, in a lab.
Yeah, actually in a computer lab. So it's right. I mean, think of it like a flight simulator. I mean, before a pilot ever sits in a real cockpit, he's practicing thousands of hours, any emergency, any weather condition, any possible scenario. And that's what we do for medicine. So we model this complex biology, fit it into computer models, and then test a new treatment there.
But how do you do that? So let me put that way. If there's not a person, you're doing it in a computer lab, how are you bringing all together?
So it's complex, but in simple words, I mean, we start by modeling how the healthy human body works. And then we layer on what a specific disease is doing on it. So how is it disrupting normal body function? And then we use a lot of clinical data, real-world evidence data, biological lab data, so all kind of medical data to train that computer model. And this then allows us to test new medications there first.
And how digital twins are helping to accelerate the way you are running clinical trials within Sanofi?
Yeah, great question and very important question. Sorry, I have to move on.
There's one person following over here.
Okay, thank you. But anyhow, so I think it's a very good question because, to be honest, drug development is brutally hard. So many drugs fail, and each failure costs years of time, millions of dollars, and most important, it delays getting the help to patients that urgently need them. So digital patient twins actually offer that we get our treatments to patients faster, saving time and saving money.
I see. And what are you doing with these simulations? You are doing a lot of them. What are you doing with them?
So I think the three main applications of simulations in digital patient twins is first, really protect vulnerable patients by running things in silico. Second, also to pick winning drug candidates faster, removing animal testing also. And last but not least, also help us designing better clinical trials.
Let's go deeper maybe and go step by step about how this is going to happen. How do digital patient twins are helping to protect patients? It's not that easy to understand.
Yeah, so that's the first case study we have. We have 3 in total, so stay with us. So the first one, I think, is the most powerful and also the most human. So you can imagine that some patients, especially those of rare diseases, they are very vulnerable and they are hard to reach. They are hard to be included into clinical trials. And that's where we can use digital patient twins to do simulations.
And what do you do instead?
Yeah, so I mean, in the case here, we actually built what we call a virtual patient population. So these are thousands of digital patient twins, and then actually tested the treatment in this virtual patient population instead of running a real clinical trial. And actually we did that, and that's the case I want to zoom into, for one rare and devastating disease called ASMD.
What is that?
Okay, so it's a tongue breaker. I tried. Acid sphingomyelinase deficiency. It's a rare disease, and imagine it like this. So in all of your cells currently, there's a lot of housekeeping happening right now, just making sure that all the waste products are removed, and there are some key enzymes responsible for that. And in case of ASMD, one of these key enzymes is actually broken or missing, and in this case, then in the cells, the waste, in this case a fatty substance, is piling up, and this buildup actually is impacting the normal function of several vital organs like the lung, the spleen, the liver, in very severe cases of ASMD, also the brain, and it's in severe cases it's also fatal in early childhood. So that's where actually and actually you can also think about, because it's so rare, there are just a few thousand of people worldwide, it's hard to study, so it's almost impossible to run a traditional clinical trial.
So it seems to be quite a complicated disease. How do simulations help actually the clinical trials?
Yeah, so in this case, actually, we generated the evidence the drug regulators are expecting running virtual simulations. So we generated digital patient twins of these ASMD patients and generated the evidence,
Sorry.
the regulators were looking for actually in these virtual patients.
Yeah, because
Okay.
they're on this side.
Okay, no, yeah.
So basically, it seems to be a genuine turn point, I understand, yeah?
Yeah, so definitely it is. So I think we are moving, and actually the interesting part, I forgot to say that's the most important part. So you can say, do the regulators accept this? But for ASMD, I mean, the remarkable point was that the FDA accepted these simulations. They said good enough and approved the new treatment, the enzyme replacement therapy, in all ASMD patients. So I think, Christina, as you said, we are really there at a turning point also. So we see that the era of traditional drug development with traditional clinical trials is evolving, and we are entering actually a world where computers and biology go hand in hand to actually accelerate the drug development.
Let's get into a second use case, Firas. You mentioned to me that digital patient twins can also help Sanofi to make better decisions on which drug to pursue.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's a very common problem we solve in R&D. But just to give you the picture, imagine that you're a film director, Tarantino, Spielberg, and you have dozens of scripts laying on your desk, and you obviously cannot make all the movies, so you have to pick the ones that are the most likely to be hits. And that's a problem that we found ourselves quite often, and we found ourselves in one of the research projects with 30 drug candidates, and you obviously cannot make all the clinical trials because it's, as I think was mentioned, very expensive, lengthy, sometimes there are even ethical considerations to take into account. So using human-based models helped us simulate the outcomes before we even do any clinical trials and rank these drug candidates in terms of potential, prioritize the most promising ones, and then move forward with confidence to the next steps with the pre-selection.
Let me come back again on one word you used, human-based. We said there are simulations. What does that mean?
That's a very important cast. I mean, the human-based aspect is very important because animal models and animals are useful, but animals are not human. And a drug that works well in a mouse will not necessarily translate to a human being for obvious considerations. And the power of these models is that they're based on human biology, on human data. So they are more accurate, more relevant. And when they make a prediction, it's usually more likely to translate into real-world success.
So that's actually a smarter drug selection, I understand. As you mentioned earlier, the goal is to serve the patients. That's the ultimate goal, obviously. How does this is bringing the treatment faster to patients in this complex process that we see?
Absolutely, and I think that's the big question. And maybe to describe again the challenge, when you go through clinical trial, it's like the final exam for a molecule or a drug. You have to convince patients, doctors, regulators that your treatment not only works but also is better than what's out there. So you have lots of questions to answer, lots of choices to make. Who are your patients? What's the duration of the study? What kind of complications can we run into? So, and for each of these choices, you make a decision that will make or break your trial. So if you go wrong, you can find yourself in a situation where your trial fails. You cannot get the drug to the market, not necessarily because the science didn't work, but sometimes it's because the design wasn't made the right way to show that it works.
So again, we come back to the goal of all that is simulating the trial before you run it.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the powerful examples that we've had. So we had an asthma situation. As you know, asthma is a pretty common indication. It's hundreds of millions of patients around the world. And it's an indication where that narrows the airways, that impacts the way we breathe, so it's quite impactful. And in one of the trials, we were able to run the simulations to predict the outcomes and skip a full phase of a clinical trial that won us a full year in the development cycle. So that's 1 year in the development life cycle, but it's especially 1 year closer to the patients that can benefit from the medication faster. So this is a very concrete case where this was a complete hit.
I suggest we move on maybe to, we keep the third case for a moment, and we come to something quite important, is regulation, obviously. These are, for sure, very relevant examples, very powerful ones, but if we put that into perspective, and we're talking about the FDA, if people don't know, it's the US authority that approves new medicine. The question would be, Thomas, does the FDA really trust a computer simulation as much as the traditional clinic trials?
Yeah, very important question, and the answer is yes, and actually it accelerates. So in 2022, I think this example which I just showed on this ASMD case, the FDA accepted virtual evidence instead of traditional clinical trial. So that was the first time. And then actually in 2023, we did a blind prediction for a new treatment in asthma. And we did the predictions before the trial results came out, and they matched, which showed that the technology is working. And actually then last year, the FDA is even asking pharma to fade out animal testing, at least for efficacy for certain drug classes. So definitely yes.
So that's good news. It means that at least it's less complicated for, let's say, rare disease, as you mentioned earlier. Just to close, and we keep the third case, just in case we want to leave a couple of minutes for you to ask questions. If you look into the future, what do you see?
Yeah, so I think I see 3 stages. So short term, I would like to see that for each novel medicine, we start a clinical trial, a phase 3 trial. We have a virtual trial before we start on a real patient on all assets. Then second, I mean, that's midterm. We want to eliminate all animal testing for all drug classes, just picking winning drug candidates by simulations. And long term, really, that's really long term, that we say we predict efficacy of molecules before we even make them. So
wow.
that would be the very future. So that's where we go. And actually, I think digital patient twins not only accelerate the way we do drug development, I think they really reinvent it. And at Sanofi, we are really committed to leading that change.
Thank you very much. A great applause to you. Thank you. We have a couple of minutes for questions if you wish. Don't hesitate, raise your hands. Yes, well, there are plenty. Let's see. See, that's why we keep the minutes, a couple of minutes. Don't hesitate to introduce yourself, yeah?
Milan Cables from Genmab. I have a question about, have you come across some deal breakers that make a virtual team setup not possible? It could be like limited data, or it's the wrong TA. So what have been some of those deal breakers?
Yeah, very good question. So as I said, we are not there yet that we are doing this for all and every drug candidate. We have a few indications, a few therapeutic areas where we think we have enough data, enough of understanding where we can do this computer modeling. So this is asthma, this is inflammatory bowel disease, this is atopic dermatitis. Coming from rare diseases, I think that's what we covered earlier. But definitely there are gaps where we say the biology is not understood of a given disease. Maybe also the mechanism of action of the drug candidate is just too complex right now. So we are not touching all, but we try to model what we can.
I think there were other 2 questions just in front, at the front.
Thank you. Sofia Kulikova, Yun Press Media.
You need to speak a little louder. Yeah.
Sofia Kulikova, Yun Press Media. I have 2 small questions. The first one, how many digital patient wins in your database already?
Yeah, we have virtual populations for, I would say, 15 indications. So, and then are thousands of digital patient twins, but we cover 15 indications, 15.
Okay, thank you. And the last question, some trials are already approved by FDA. Do FDA seen already the results of the trial? If the drug is already approved for the market? And the second question about European agency, what they are thinking about this?
So shall I do it? Take it or?
Oh, we need the mic. Yeah, it's working. It's working.
No, it's okay. I think so. European agencies, I think they're so. First question, I think, is whether there's a follow through after the approval. I think yes. I mean, obviously, I think it's a regular part of any phase 4 after the phase 3s. There's always a follow up done by the pharma itself, but also by the regulators. So it's part of the standard process. But it's also, I think, there's also attention to in silico related trials as well. And I think your other question was for the European regulatory. I think there are discussions. It's a dynamic world. I think I think the technology is sometimes moving faster than the regulations, but I think there's a constant dialogue and it's moving in the right direction at least.
So we will see it in a couple of years.
We hardly hear you.
Yes, they are thinking about this. Yeah.
One last question, and
Hi.
you can go and talk to them afterwards.
I'm Gabriel from Uppsala University. I guess the digital twins are just approximate model of the reality. So how do you convince the FDA that this is a sound choice to make? Do you have theoretical guarantees, or is it purely an empirical thing?
No, I mean, it also for the FDA, you need to validate your model with data that hasn't been seen. So for example, for ASMD, we simulated first the untreated children with ASMD coming from adults, saying, okay, what would the phenotype look like? And that was spot on how they really look in reality without using that data. And then I think the FDA said, okay, that's good enough. I mean, and they believed, or they trusted the treatment simulation we offered for this submission.
Come on, let's take one last one as you were ready.
Thank you. My question is how HCPs view these synthetic trials, if I can say that, and how can we, as Salesforce, address this issue? I mean, is there any studies that compares regular clinical trials with synthetic ones? Thank you.
So good question, but I mean, I think the drug regulators, they take the same rigor and they accept, I mean, if you show the proof that it's validated, then they use also complementary virtual trial or synthetic data. But I think also for ASMD, we had clinical data for adults we translated into ASMD sick children. So you always have to have a starting point to build your model, then make sure that the extrapolation is within scope of the model, and that's what you have to show. I mean, we are using it now, and it's also, I think, a cultural change in our company to more think about, okay, is the trial really needed, or can you build on evidence that's either coming from, well, these disease models, or is it coming maybe from real-world evidence data from drugs that are on the market with similar mode of action? So that you definitely want to reduce the burden for patients, but still keep the safety and make sure you bring safe treatments to the patients.
Yeah, maybe one small point on that. I think it's also having small examples that are approved in real life and on which we get more and more time. So we get the look back. I think that also helps build confidence on these cases, both with the regulatories and also with the HCPs in that case, yeah.
Thank you very much to both of you. Great applause. Thank you. Congratulations for everything that you do. You can, of course, go and talk to both of them and stay with us, because in 11 minutes, to be precise, 11 minutes, we will talk about from shop floor to smart floor, how AI is augmenting production teams. In the meantime, don't hesitate to check our booths, our corners. You have how AI is used for R&D, also for patient experience, manufacturing, and obviously also how it enhances the way Sanofi is working. See you in 10 minutes. Thank you.